Welcome to Witham, eSuite's interview's newest episode. We are here with Andrew Barat, the Senior Director of Accounting and Controller at LaFleur, which is a women's wear brand known for introducing the world to power casual, the clothing equivalent of work-life balance. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today about the sales tax landscape since Wayfair.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Bri. I'm so happy to join you on this discussion. You have defined as a true, powerful, power casual women clothing. is really a fashion brand celebrating, women through thoughtful design clothing. We do offer complimentary personal styling, and we also have like a women community where we try to elevate and promote women as much as we can. And another aspect of our brand that makes us really stand out is how passionate our customer base are. We still consider ourselves a younger brand, but we're like super excited to see how passionate our customers are. Like we do have a Slack channel where we share internally all our customers' feedback, if it's good or bad, on everything that is doing for them.
Awesome. Yes, it's super exciting working with you and learning all about the company and the business and how empowering it is for women, especially being women in the workforce. I know you've had experience before Wayfair as well as post Wayfair. How have you seen sales tax compliance change since Wayfair?
Yes, absolutely. I have just to take a step back. I have been in the wholesale and retail environment for over 15 years now, and working in retail apparel, especially skincare and jewelry, selling items to consumers. The sales tax has become very, very challenging since the Wayfair ruling. It really changed the dynamics of how business operates. Sales tax don't drive any income for the business. It's one of the things that you really have to be compliant with state for. So, of the times when the company look at sales tax, like, okay, it might be easy. Let's just charge a sales tax and move forward. Let's focus on revenue driving activities. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening. As a controller, I have to be really constant monitoring, states thresholds, maintaining accurate records and leveraging automation, or even using Witham. You guys have been super helpful tracking economic nexus for us. So it's been a real challenge for us. And in addition to that, too, Bree, like, some of these states, they're not that easy. Like, for example, New York, like, offer a tangle of exemptions and county specific rates that keep business on their toes. We always have to pay attention. California is another one that has high base rates and a patch of local taxes. It's just a compliance headache.
Yeah. I know we've been working some time together with the company and just generally speaking, like with your experience, you've kind of seen it all, right? When it comes to retail for sales tax. The world has changed a lot since Wayfair, just in the respect of like businesses and what they have to do for sales tax, but it's also what is exempt now, what is actually taxable now has also changed. And not just how you're looking at your sales tax side, but there's also the use tax side, right? So like there's always that added level of complication when it comes to sales tax and being registered in all these states and just as a business operating in all these states, right? There's been a lot of challenges. Is there anything that like you think that you've seen over the last couple of years that maybe would be like your biggest challenge that you've seen in the e-commerce space?
Yes, especially in apparel, what is taxable in one state might not be taxable in another state. Dollar threshold, like what amount you pay taxes for and what amount you don't pay taxes for. In some areas, shipping charges is taxable, and in some areas, shipping charges is not taxable. And then on the use tax side, like we always have to be so diligent about, okay, here's an invoice for an item that we must have capitalized on that doesn't have a sales tax. Just remember to manually calculate the use tax in it to include in the sales tax return. So all of these things become very cumbersome to track and control.
And I think too, just the industry that you're in. I mean, like if you look at New York, there's like a totally different form that can be completed when
Yes.
you're filing your returns, right? And then, you roll up to like Massachusetts and over a certain dollar amount, you might have to have sales tax applied where, if you're under that dollar amount, you don't. So it just kind of adds that layer of
Yes.
complication. it's really Bria and my space. So we do we do enjoy the changes, but
Exactly.
but
And
as a business, it can be challenging,
it is
right?
challenging. And like I said, it's not revenue generating. And, things are tough out there. And, salespeople need to be focusing on sales. And here Andrew is trying to like use their time to make sure sales tax is being captured correctly. It is, it's a whole area by itself. And another layer on top of that is the wholesale. Like we are part wholesale too. Like now, okay, fine. We're selling wholesale. There's no tax. We have to remember to capture the exempt certificate for that. We still have to report that revenue from the wholesale into these filings.
Right. And for a business like yours, it may not apply now, but like in the beginning, when you have to start taking into consideration, well, what states actually do include those wholesales in their thresholds, right?
Yes,
When you were meeting those economic thresholds. So it's obviously an added layer of complication. One of the
it
things
is.
that I wanted to mention is you had said, like, when you're collecting them, it's not even just collecting them, right? Like, you have
Yeah.
to have somebody checking those. You have to make sure that the information is completed. I mean, one of the things that I know, Bria, you can attest to is we constantly get exemption certificates that we review where, like, it's not signed or it's not dated.
There you go. There you
So,
go. And then another thing too, like we're in the business of selling, right? We're a retailer. So we have retail transactions where a customer come in and they may buy a product. They wanted to exchange that product, um, for a higher price or a lower price or an even exchange. And sometimes technology does not work on our side. It's throw the sales tax calculation completely off. The connectors that are connecting between the sales tax program and the ERP is also challenging, where it's like, okay, this customer returned this shirt, for example, 10 times. They can't find the original order anymore, and the system would just probably just like freeze.
yeah.
So
It's a lot of
it's a lot of
manual work.
challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of manual work to keep up with sales tax.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things that we do see that I know you guys are using, which helps, is using a system, right, in play to kind of make sure that what you can automate is automated, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any like horror stories or anything that like you found was like the most complicated piece out of it all when you guys were instituting an automation software to kind of help out with the process?
First of all, we rely on the POS to truly calculate the sales tax. And we have recently moved to Shopify, which was a big improvement for us. But like before that, we have seen where tax was not calculated or the system make their own decision that this item was exempt, although it was fully coded as a taxable item. So with Shopify, we really see a little bit of a difference where it's calculating what is truly taxable and what is not. And also in our ERP system, we make sure like we have a ledger for each state. Like I don't combine all the taxes in one state and then sift through that to figure out what is California, New York. And we also program the connector to like, okay, if the shipping address is California, just make sure like the sales tax landed in the California ledger.
That's good advice because,
Yeah,
a lot of companies don't do that, right? A lot of companies do kind of just put everything in one account. And when it comes to, an audit, God forbid,
yeah,
right? It makes it very challenging to be able to kind of tie out those transactions and show an auditor like where those sales were or what was going on with that sales tax for that particular state. So
exactly.
that's great advice there.
It is. I mean, when you look at my balance sheet, you might see a whole long pages of ledgers of sales tax. But hey, I'm sorry, it's from all the states from A to Z. I
Yeah.
have to keep them separate. I have to keep checking my connectors to make sure it is bringing in where it should going. You know, as much as we rely on technology, sometimes the system read things differently. You might see an Alaska sales tax in California. So you have to continue to be diligent every month to make sure everything is recorded correctly. And another complicated layer, which I would like to add, is so you have your POS, right? So like you have your POS to manage all your stores, but the POS also allow connect plugins where you, for example, Facebook, right? You can sell your product on Facebook or you can sell your product on TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok,
Instagram, they all do it now.
yes, all of them you sell your product on these marketplace, and these marketplace are responsible for filing the sales tax.
Right.
But when these app transfer the data into your POS, you're seeing all the transactions. Now your connector does not know how to exclude the sales tax line if it's going to bring it into ERP. And the reason why you may not be able to exclude it is because your debits and your credits need to match. So if you're going to back out the sales tax and the customer pay you X dollars, you will have a variance there. So now, in addition to a ledger for each state, I have to create a ledger for Facebook, for example. So anything
Yeah.
that's sell on Facebook needs the sales tax need to come into the Facebook ledger. To identify that and make an entry to reverse that, because, we as the retailer, we're not responsible for filing the sales tax collected on a Facebook order.
Right. Yeah, because as a marketplace facilitator, it
Yeah,
becomes their responsibility.
correct. And this goes for this goes for Saks, for Neiman's, for Nordstrom, because
Yeah.
our drop shipment model with all these wholesalers is the same thing. They use an app called Miracle where the order get processed. The sales tax come into my system. I'm not responsible for filing the sales tax. So you have to isolate that. I can't have all these Nordstrom and Saks sales tax is hitting the state GL. They has to go separate.
Yeah. No, it's a testament to the fact that like software is software, right? Like it's great for automating, sorry, the
Mm-hmm.
things that like are easy to connect to it, like your Shopify, right?
Yeah.
Easy to connect to it, easy to get it flowing. But when you start adding in kind of these additional revenue streams, it does
Yes.
become a lot more complicated, right? It does become a lot more challenging to be able to, file correctly, because you want to file correctly, right? You want to report those sales that are going through your
Absolutely.
marketplace
Yes.
facilitators. You want to report those drop ship sales, right? But you also don't want to double pay the tax.
Exactly.
So there are definitely a lot of complications when it comes to like having automation, even though, it does make life easier. There's automation out there now too that actually like checks the exemption certificates, right? So that you don't have to sit
Yeah.
there and go through and check. But all of it really comes down to how it's set up. And then somebody still needs to reconcile it, right?
Yeah.
You hear all the time, especially in this industry, and I'm sure you hear a little bit of it too, is like everyone's like, well, AI is going to replace you, right? You still need somebody to be in
I
there
know.
checking it. And we see it every day with these softwares,
I,
right?
I thought
So,
about that. I says, good luck with AI trying to work with sales tax. I'm sure
yeah,
it will quickly generate an audit. I mean, knock on wood, I've been at MM for 5 years and we have never had a sales tax audit. In my past life, I've went through several audits with large
yeah,
states.
yeah,
I remember had a huge sales tax with Toronto. We also had one with California and New York. Like these states just
mhm,
chase after companies. And I feel like honestly, these states, like if they come one time and audit you and, they feel like they want to come more often.
yeah. Well, depending on the situation, right? So I feel like some states, especially from a use tax perspective, like Bria and myself have sourced and had a lot of conversations with the different softwares that are out there
Hmm.
from a use tax perspective. And the thing is a lot of it just has to be manual, right? Or a lot of it needs extensive
Yeah,
developmental build out to be accurate. And the problem is whenever, especially like if it's a state that you're located in, whenever you do a use tax audit, there's no opportunity for the business to be 100% on point when it comes to use tax, right? Like
correct.
there's always going to be something, unfortunately. And you're right. Once they see it the first time, it's more likely that they're probably going to come around again,
Yeah.
right? At some
Hmm.
point in time. I'm going to knock on wood for you though, because
Thank
you
you.
said that you haven't had any audits yet, right?
Yeah.
But and sometimes it's inevitable. You have to keep in mind, like from the state's perspective, this is how their revenue, right?
Yeah.
Like this is how they support the systems, the roads, the schools. So, you get both sides when you're in a position like Bria and myself, where like you obviously, you're my client. I want to make sure that we do the best by you, but we also still have to pay the state what they owe,
Yes,
right? Or
exactly.
what they should be
Yes.
paid. So,
I totally agree. Just need to be like, I mean, that's where, the finance company people come in, like streamline your process, do as much as you can to be as close or compliant as possible as you can to minimize that exposure when that time reach. And I'm so thankful for you, Courtney and Bree, like for Whittam and entirely, like since I've been with MM, like Whittam have been very supportive in not in other areas, but sales tax is one of the large areas that I always come to you and I says like, okay, here's something we need to do. This is what's happening. What's going, like I always bounce those ideas rather than taking an assumption of, okay,
Yeah.
let's do it this way. Like I prefer to get it right at the beginning rather than making corrections later.
Yeah. Have you ever had a company where, like, you've had to do cleanup, as opposed to kinda, like, being on point from the very beginning?
Yeah, I went to companies. I've been around for a little bit. I've went to companies where sales tax was not as clean. And one of the areas
Yeah.
what I realized too, like they were giving so much product away as gifts, and those
Yep.
gifts are taxable.
Yep.
And then
Right.
like they're giving these gifts to like employees in other states, so like you're shipping it. So it's like it became a little messy to track because once you enter a gifting order, it becomes like a $0 value in the system. So the
Mhm.
system don't calculate the sales tax. So
Right.
now you got to do that in Excel, unfortunately. Like, okay, you're shipping it to California. What is the sales tax rate for that specific jurisdiction? Calculate that sales tax. And then you got to upload that sales tax into your tax system because it's,
Under a
it's,
different template and a different
yeah.
coding
Hmm.
to make sure it flows to the line that you
Yes.
want it to flow to.
And then,
So
I know exactly. And then in our industry, like, we do a lot of gifting in PR. We use a lot of product for photo shoot. Um, Sometimes we don't take the product back, so we write them
yeah.
off as gifting. And there's still tax compliance with those items.
A lot of times, some companies don't even, like, understand. They're like, "I don't understand. It's free." Right? Like,
Yeah,
"I gave it away for free." But that, I will say, is, like, generally speaking, what we're seeing under audit, a target account, right?
yeah,
Marketing, gifting, all of
yes,
that. Yeah, influencers, all of that. Yeah. So, you nailed it right on the head that, like, it's definitely an area that, like, you have to keep on top of, especially in a
yes.
business like yours.
Yeah, like I remember way before Wayfair, like in my earlier years, sales tax was very minimal. Like we were
Mhm.
only collecting in states that really have a true presence. Like
Right.
you have a lease, you have a location, you have employees, and that's about it. And then all of a sudden, next I'm collecting for 48 states
Yeah. And locals
and
and
locals. Yeah,
reporting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like both sides for Bria and myself, like, keeps me busy, keeps
yeah,
us
I know.
working. But, but it is a huge burden for
It
a lot of
is. I mean,
companies.
yes, on my end, it's a huge burden, but I can really see it is something that needs to be done. It's part of the taxes. And, if your process in place, it's easy.
Yeah. I think you're a very organized person too. So
Thank
that, like,
you.
kind of helps with the
Oh,
process,
I
right?
tried. Yeah, I don't want to like go off of, my track of how I manage my sales tax. Every month we do have, after we do the filing, we make sure like, we pull that report and see, what was that liability versus what's sitting on the balance sheet and make any adjustments if needed. Keep clean records of what has been posted. Keep all these exempt certificates signed and saved somewhere.
I do love to hear how diligent you are in your monitoring and review of your sales tax liabilities and whatnot. Because as you guys were both discussing earlier, the software is just an automation tool and it can break. And Courtney and I have seen
Yeah.
a breakage which have caused horror stories for companies because they didn't realize their sales tax software broke and they are not reporting all of this tax that has been collected, and it's a big cleanup.
Wow.
So the
Wow.
Yeah.
the little bit of monitoring could have went a long way in
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
period of time where
Reconciling and monitoring, like, we
Yes.
harp all day.
Yes.
So, so somebody still has to reconcile it at the very least, right?
Exactly. Don't assume you'll get paid by itself as 100% accurate.
Right,
Nope. Make sure you
right.
have a little bit of provision. Make sure, first of all, you find time to reconcile your sales tax. You know what you're paying. You know what your records you have, and have a little have a little bit of provision for if anything needs to be fixed.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love about you and working with you is you ask questions, right? If you have a tax provider or a tax advisor, ask questions because, like, no when it comes to sales tax, like no question is a silly question. I feel like
Yeah.
you're better off just asking and making sure and confirming, because the last thing you want to do is make an assumption, right? And like you had mentioned, if it's shipping somewhere and the tax rate doesn't look right, and you're like, oh no, the software's good, it's got it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then you get audited and it's like, just kidding. Like, you've got hundreds of transactions that are not right, right?
Yeah.
So, asking those questions, I think, are absolutely crucial for a business to not end up in a pitfall of, not reporting where they should be reporting, or reporting to the wrong state, or collecting the wrong
Yeah.
tax rates, whatever it is. So,
Thank you for that. I mean, I do like, even sometimes I find myself like, am I overthinking this? Because like, take for example, when there's like, a tax-free weekend, right? Boston had a tax-free weekend where it's not taxable. Like, I'm just so paranoid. I had to go back after the weekend to like double check a few transactions to make sure they were not taxable, just to make sure like it was compliant.
yeah. I remember when I first started working in sales tax and like heard about these like tax-free weekends, I was like, that can't be real. Don't do that. That can't be real. But it's surprising. I feel like it's becoming more prevalent actually for a
Yeah.
lot of states and a lot of cities. So, which
Yes.
I think it's nice that they do that, right? Like,
Yes, I would, as a consumer, I will definitely take those opportunity and,
yeah,
you know,
you have
uh,
the insider information to
yeah.
take
So,
advantage of it.
so what happened
So,
is like whenever there's a tax-free weekend, we normally get a notification in my email saying there's a tax-free weekend coming up. So it seems like the system have been knowing to shut off the calculation for that period automatically, which is great, but I also still double check. But my concern though is, like I always think though, like, okay, does when you do that filing, I'm wondering, does the state really remember or knows, or like, because what I'm thinking, they might saying X dollars of revenue reported, but a small portion of taxes,
yeah.
which can like say, okay, are they not collecting taxes for everything, which can like initiate an audit. But I'm thinking perhaps they know well to exclude sales within that period that was not taxable.
Right. And I think too, like the other kind of additional thing when it comes to the tax holidays is like, it's not everything, right? That not
Yeah,
everything is covered under the tax holidays, generally specified items like
that's true.
clothing, right?
Yeah,
Shoes. But not all shoes.
I
Like,
know.
there's always some sort of like designation that's in there. And that's where automation is great for instances like that, because especially if your product is coded properly, it should flow, right? It should work.
Yeah.
It should, unless something, breaks, it should work properly. But I will say, like, trying to do that as a business, like on your own, and having to also manage kind of the customer experience too, because a lot of times these customers know that it's like a tax-free weekend and
Yeah,
you're
they
like,
know.
hey,
They would talk to us to the store. It's like, okay, I'm not paying tax today. It's like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
we know.
Exactly. And like, the mentality of like the want to having good customer service, good customer
Yeah,
experience, right? So being able to handle those and deal with those accurately, timely, and
yeah,
effectively is really important.
it is. And what even becomes a little bit more cumbersome too, like that clothes that you bought. Like I'm keep saying clothes because we're an apparel company, but like that item that you bought during a tax-free weekend and then you return them when there were no tax and you want to exchange them and you're buying something higher, it just become a little bit more cumbersome.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
How are you ensuring that your products, new products that come in, are all coded appropriately?
Yeah. The good thing about MM, all the apparel has one coating. Footwear has another coating. Some accessories have some coating. So we just have a few general category of coating. So once we set up an item in our POS system, we assign that coating to it. And then what the system does, and this system is Shopify actually, the POS, what that system does, if there's a tax-free weekend on certain parameters like a dollar threshold or the item itself, the system just know not to calculate the sales tax for that sale or that purchase.
Yes, as long as we're coded effectively and appropriately, right? Because if it
Yes.
wasn't coded, if it was just
Yeah.
coded to a normal tangible personal property default code, it wouldn't act the same way. So ensuring that like you have it
Correct.
coding in place is super important when it comes to
Yes,
appropriate sales tax collections.
absolutely. And the good thing is that it's not like the coding got deleted during a tax-free weekend, for example, and then we need to go back and manually add it. No, it just paused, which is great.
Do you have like a best practice when it comes to like coding new products? Because I would imagine, you guys have new products coming out, and generally not just one size, right? Like
Correct.
there's
No,
four or
definitely.
five, six
Yes.
different SKUs, right? So
Absolutely, yes. Especially if you're going to get something with Ford, you're going to get something with a different type of fabric or material or anything like that, or leather, for example. We do have a listing of all the codes that get refreshed periodically. So we refer to that. I mean, I personally refer to that chart to let the merchandising team know, like, these are the code for the new product that you guys are going to be having. And we keep abreast of what's happening, if anything changed, if this item is now taxable or not taxable, and if we need to update, because the system will not change it for us. Once we plug a code into an item, it will left upon us to go change that code if needed. So you have to keep up with your tax rules and laws of what's happening. And that's where Rhythm comes in many times. You guys always share with us if there's something that's happening. And I always like, take a look at the new rule or the new law and see if it's applicable to MM.
yeah, it's a lot. But again, I think you've got great processes in place, which has been like a huge assistance.
Yes, thank you for that. And I was saying, like, it's not just one or two states. It's you're selling online. You're probably going to be touching 48 states very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, especially now where most of the states have dropped their thresholds or they've dropped like the transaction counts. We're seeing that kind of be the next big push. Is there used to be the transactions or the dollar, and now a lot of people are dropping that, or a lot of states, I'm sorry, are dropping
Yeah,
that transaction count, and really it's just the dollar. So I feel like it's becoming a little bit easier for businesses where the average transaction is a little bit higher to easily meet that, though.
yes,
Kind of
absolutely.
capturing a bigger pool, it feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So, is there any advice that you'd like to provide to the audience when it comes to sales tax compliance?
My experience and what I have seen and learned over 15 years in this area, I feel like it's really set up your chart of account where you manage all your states separately, because you don't want to mix them up.
Love
That's
that.
one, to begin with. And to make sure your code is all properly coded with your sales tax code, so the system know the rate and if it's taxable or not. Always pay attention to your use tax to see if for me, like, use tax mostly is driven from a capital expenditure side. So if you're like building a new store, just make sure you keep copies of all those invoices. First of all, see if you can push the suppliers to include the sales tax on the invoice to make things a little bit easier. Some of them do. Some
That's
of
true.
them don't. Like the general contractor might say, no, he's not going to be responsible for the sales tax. Well, then just make sure you keep a record of his invoice and you calculate that use tax and pay to that state where that
Yeah.
assets live. And
Yeah.
again, don't forget every month, make sure you pull your liability report and you reconcile your balance sheet to make sure you're not far off. You will have variance. Nothing is perfect. There will be variance. Just make sure you're not far off. If you're far off, then you need to look into see if your POS is not bringing in the information correctly into your ERP system, one. And two, or double check to see what your filer is filing. Look at those transactions to see how accurate that transaction is. So like those little checks and balances, you can really try to minimize the risk and keep sales tax at a good flowing place and not have to have too much of a worrisome of like, okay, is this really accurate or not accurate? Or wait until they're at your door knocking just to look at your books. The biggest thing, you don't want the auditors to come. You don't have time to sit down and deal with an auditor who is trying to like check every single transactions if it was taxable or not.
Yeah.
You just want to be compliant as much as you can and do the right thing by collecting the taxes and remit them to the state timely.
I think with the diligence too of like being as organized as you are, it does make those audits go
Yeah.
much easier, right? You don't want
Yeah.
to give them, or what I generally see is disorganized clients is where like the biggest opportunity is for an
Yeah.
auditor, right? Because now they can say, well, I want to question it all. Right.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, like just being as diligent as possible to set up these systems and processes in play. So when you do have that audit or when you do get to that position of like, well, this return doesn't match, I need to figure out what's going on. It's so much easier,
Yes,
right? Like
it's so
it's so
much
much
easier if
easier.
you just dive into that specific return, that specific estate for that specific period. Deal
Couldn't
with
agree
it right
more.
there and then, and try to see if you find a variance, try to fix it on the next return.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And if
And
you
and make sure you make a note of that too,
exactly,
right?
so
So
yes, you did your due diligence. You find something was wrong, and you make the correction.
yeah. It's all great advice. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so
Likewise,
much for
Courtney and
taking the
Bree.
time today.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you so
likewise. Thank you
much.
so much. Really appreciate it. I didn't realize sales tax is so exciting. Thank you.
I listen, I love it. I think Bria does too. Hopefully I'm not
Yeah.
speaking for her.
No,
But
we need people like you guys to really help navigate, complexities of these rules and laws. So
yeah.
it's very, very helpful.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Maria.